Good evening, all. We are going to begin our village. The violate.
Is your computer muted?
There we go. All right. Today is Monday, September 23. We're beginning our work session with an executive session to discuss real property matters and matters of personnel. There are motion.
Try closing your computer soon, but just to see if it's.
Is there a motion?
Yeah.
No, not.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Okay, we'll be back. All right, we're back. Sorry to be a bit late there. We were in executive session and have now returned from it. Panther Club update. We're quite a bit late. Sorry about that, Mike. Are you there?
I'm here. How's everybody doing?
Good. Apologies for being late.
No worries.
How goes it, sir?
So we're off and running. But so we'll just start with we currently do have a wait list of 42. Now that doesn't mean that of those 42 we haven't gotten to some of those people and gotten them into a couple of the days that they may have needed. So we are working through that list. I think for October, we were able to help out 7 families with varying days. And we're hoping in November, we will be able to add some more.
How's it going on the staffing front?
Staffing front is been tough. We started off the year being at a number we were good with, and not the number we wanted to be at, and it quickly changed on us where we were losing people for they took other jobs or people that we had fully vetted and done all the paperwork and background check, and then they just disappeared on us. And so we were a little bit tight in the beginning. Myself, Mindy, and Kristen were all up there. We've pretty much since we started, just to make sure that we are in compliance with our proper ratios. Part of that is that we have some staff that works at the school, which is great, and works at some of the different schools, but some of them cannot make it to us till 3 o'clock or 3:15 because they're obligated to work. The school's obligated, their contract is still 3:15. So, as great as it is to have those people, sometimes when we're struggling for staff, that gets a little difficult. So we are advertising through our website, through Indeed. I recently put an ad in the Examiner just to try and get some more applications to the door so that we can try to get to the number we want to be at. We are still actively working to hire the director for this program. And we are currently going back and forth with the county right now, hoping to have some sort of a resolution soon so that we could potentially offer this position to one of the candidates that we've identified.
Believe we have a good candidate. So
we do.
It's just a struggle with county civil service to get through all of the hoops.
It has been a long process.
Great. That's the understatement of the day.
Yeah.
All right. So, inching along, is that waiting list 42, you said?
Yes.
That bigger than it was? That's bigger than last year at this time. Is that true?
No, I'm at this time last year, I would say it's probably about the same. If not, last year had more. I know at one point we had 57 on the list last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we
then-
work
But in the
as the
course
year-
of
Go
as
ahead.
the weeks pass, there's quite a bit of churn in this.
month to month, there's change.
Mhm.
So for October, like I said, we were able to reach out to, I believe it was about 7 different families. Some of them needing 1 or 2 days, some of them still needing multiple days, but we were able to give them, a Thursday or a Wednesday and what we had available. Payment for October is currently been billed and is due. So that's typically when we start seeing changes. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. We're still in September. So September
Not by
bill
much,
went out.
but we are still.
No. So in September, the October bill went out. And that's when we typically see some changes. People start realizing, oh, we don't need as many days. And that's where we had some spots open up for October. On October 1, we send out November's bill. And again, that's when we will start to see changes as people say, hey, we don't need all of 5 days. We only need 3 days. And days will open up and we'll work to fill those spots for November.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Much appreciate that report and keep us up to date on how it's going. As an aside, pool is rocking and rolling, right?
It is rocking and rolling. It is going to be a hole, and hopefully they're putting the new one in sooner than later, right?
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean, so far the progress has been impressive.
Yeah, it really has been.
that's awesome.
Yeah, let's keep posting pictures.
Yeah, we're setting up a time-lapse camera. You're gonna set that up this week, Mike?
Yeah, I got to reach out. I believe, I think Eric, you had mentioned it to me that you believe our pool contractor may have actually already done that. So I just got to double check if he's already done that. Then
Well, whoever's done it, it just would be great to be able to
Yeah.
have a time lapse and then string it together into a video of the transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. If he doesn't, we'll get
Yeah.
the one we have set up before the end of the week.
Well, a bunch of people have already driven by there and said, whoa, whoa. We
Yeah.
weren't kidding. So we weren't kidding. So, God willing, the weather will still support it. So, all right. Thank you, Mike. Sorry to keep you late.
No problem. Have a good night.
Likewise.
Good night.
All right. So maybe my little demographic update, we can push to another day.
Okay.
Why don't we do a quick music festival update as a sort of preamble to a serious discussion we need to have down the road and get Bruce and Doug Panero, the new lead director, to come and sit with us. What's the report?
So, we don't have the exact numbers, but certainly we have taken a loss on this year's music festival. What we do know is our expenses are lower than previous years, but likely we have suppressed revenue due to the weather forecast.
Right.
So we know what the landscape looks like next year. We have an indication that believe Sleepy Hollow will be doing their music fest again, although I can't confirm that. We heard that Clearwater may be coming back as well, which is around Father's Day.
It is Father's Day. It wouldn't be called Clearwater and it's not being done by the Clearwater. And we'll see what happens, but it's got, I think they're calling themselves Hudson River Fest.
Yeah.
But the idea, they have a very significant fundraising effort, I think in the 7 figures to try to support this. And, of course, that always existed parallel to our festival, but it was Father's Day, but a rather different, definitely much folkier kind of a thing and a little bit of a different group. I think the addition of Sleepy Hollow, and I reached out to Martin Runga, the mayor of Sleepy Hollow, and he and I are going to get together and chat. The Sleepy Hollow Festival is very much like our festival. And only a few weeks before it, they had, I think, very good weather, but I think didn't come anywhere near breaking even with a $125,000 state grant, which would be a one-time grant. You wouldn't get that again. And then the other thing floating around is that down in Pelham, the Tunerville Festival is I guess is it next weekend, something like
It
that?
was this past weekend.
Was it? Oh, so I have to check in on how that went. Much, quite a bit smaller and in a different setting, but still yet another thing. So, some concern that top level, obviously, weather is the driving dynamic for us this year. But you're also in a circumstance where you have potentially 3, 4 music festivals quite local. And lots of the potential audience members aren't going to go to all of them. Right? So they're going to make some choices. So the question is, what does this look like going forward? And recognize also that what hurt us badly was an extremely bad weather forecast for the 3 days leading up, which are days when you normally actually see a whole lot of ticket buying. And then day of, the weather forecast turned out to be 100% true, which was it rained on and off all morning and then stopped at noon, and it was okay the rest of the day, albeit hot. So we had what, 2,200 tickets sold on order, but we needed 1,000 more. So it'll be an interesting question to consider about how this could be different if it needs to be different. Obviously, it delivers huge number of benefits, and I can tell you lots of people, I'm there the day after when folks are picking up stuff, and a lot of people feel like it's the best day of the year. And I think for a lot of people, it felt that way this year. But it's a financial risk and hard to pull off.
Is there a willingness in, we're doing the management transition this year for the festival, is that right?
Yeah, so this coming year, if we do it again, Doug will be the lead and Bruce will be his sidekick as opposed to
And
the previous.
are they willing to consider different models, whether that's on the one hand, doing things to increase the revenue, on the other hand, doing things to like make it more family friendly, allowing some cover bands, doing things to sort of give it a different cast that would attract more people of a different type. Like either way, it seems like we're sitting in the middle of the road now where we're trying to compete with bigger festivals, but we can't really do that. So we can't afford, given the revenue structure, we can't afford the kinds of bands that will bring those people. So we sort of have.
Look, I think anything's on the table, and we should meet with Doug and Bruce and throw all of these things out there.
Yeah.
Would we benefit much by having 2 stages instead of 3? The actual cost of the bands on the 3rd stage isn't that much, but it's another setup and all that.
Yeah, I think it's just, we really need to, I think once we get the full numbers, that's when we really need to have meeting to discuss options. Obviously, we can't, continue having an event where it just relies on the weather. And that.
It will only rely on the weather, right?
But with all festivals like this, they're rain or shine, and you buy your tickets in advance, and there's different.
Which is what we said, rain or shine. It's just that a significant percentage of people don't buy in advance until they see what the weather will be.
Well, I think it's also because, you're paying how much, 75 on the day of?
75.
75,
Yeah,
right?
if you pay 200 on the
Right.
job, then it's
very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
Better or worse?
Well, then you buy early and then you're taking the risk of the weather, but.
So I can tell you, Alyssa will retire.
You're not gonna retire.
With the 200, whatever the number is. I can tell you the number, I get few complaints about the music festival. The number one complaint is the ticket price is too high.
Right, but if the ticket
Right.
price didn't change, as long as you bought it early, but we said, look, we can't keep this running, not knowing whether we're gonna lose $100,000, a day before. So if you wanna do it, you gotta support this in advance. And if it rains, then it rains on all of us.
And have you been in any other platforms like GoFundMe? Was that very passionate about?
So- Some years back, when the year Andy Goodman was a director, there was a GoFundMe and there was some benefits attached to that. You got a t-shirt, a special, I got an early t-shirt, and it had some success, but
Financial.
what we're talking about here is there's a core of true believers.
Yeah.
And several orbits of scale of belief around it. But there are a lot of people who are going to come to this no matter what. We have a blind faith pre-sale where you get like $20 off the ticket. Blind faith because you don't know who the bands are, and a lot of people buy it. But the vast majority of people are, I shouldn't say the vast majority, a significant majority of people are waiting to see about the weather. I will also say, certainly one thing that hurt us this year is last year, we had that crazy rainstorm that came swooping through and turned everything into a mess and miraculously passed through and we were able to finish. But you had everybody in Tent City, which had always sold out practically instantly, was in a circumstance where you had to tell them, shit, put down your tents, get it back, hold it up, And so this year, guess what? Tent City didn't sell out until, did it finally sell out?
It didn't,
Day up.
not including the.
Right. So, what do we attribute that to? Who knows, but maybe some piece of it is folks who had always loved Tent City, like, that was difficult, right?
I just say, like, make a simple observation, which is that, like, in the past, it seems like we more or less broke even with the music festival, right? We earned a little some years we lost a little. I feel like if we're getting to a place where consistently the taxpayer is going to be subsidizing this, that's a different conversation.
And that's, I think, the conversation we're having.
Yeah, and just to frame it in a simple way.
Right, so.
And so I do think there has to be a kind of reckoning.
No, I agree.
I won't go into like the different possible scenarios, but I do feel like I personally am uncomfortable with the idea that we're just gonna spend $50,000, $100,000 on this each year. To me, it doesn't warrant it for a one-day event. So.
And I think I agree with you, but what does it warrant, right? We do various events that cost various amounts of money and they don't rise to that level, right?
Sure.
So,
I think it contributes more than we realize. And I think that you start plucking at the threads of fabric and it's easy to not see where it came apart. So
I mean, that may be, but the cost of bands has gone up dramatically. I think in part because their expenses have gone up a lot. The other day I was talking to somebody who's an agent for bands and stuff like that. So I was talking to him about kind of the nuts and bolts of how that works. And so it's just a different world economically than what we were in even 5 years ago, but certainly further ago than that. So, and Bruce has been doing an amazing job for a long time, but obviously he's passing the torch. And so it seems like there are different ways to approach the issue. I'm not saying it has to be one, but I do feel like the financial implications for taxpayers is something that we have to factor into the way we're thinking about this.
But I definitely would. I would support experimenting. I wouldn't support giving up on this without trying to find a way to make it work.
I think that there's, all likelihood that there's a way to make it work, but it requires, I think, getting into the guts of it a little bit and seeing what the
Pepper's not busy this year.
expenses are. So
I had a like half an hour discussion with him all about this and really asking him if he would, partake as a volunteer to help with just some thoughts. But I mean, there's so much to this I go to a lot of festivals. Like, I think if anyone that came to just watch the Wailers and just paid $75 to watch them, they would have been happy with that cost. If you're promoting just them, just one band.
Yeah, people routinely pay that kind of money to see the Wailers.
Easily, it's just them by itself, and everything else that was given, it all adds up a little more. So, does it make sense to have 3 stages? I mean, most of these places have at most 2. Some have even sound on the one that's on Bridgeport has moved to 1 stage now. So
sound is 1 stage.
So now it's 1 stage. So there's so many.
I mean, that was a very different.
Of course, but I'm just saying,
but like $300 weekend ticket, and VIP tickets go up to $3,000 a head.
But we're saying they were able, so they had more of a budget and they went down to 1 stage. So it's there's so much to, I think, look at that. It's one of those things, back to what we're constantly facing here in the village, that change is tough to get accustomed to. Change is scary, and we hang on to this is how it's been, this is how it's been, but at some point, if it doesn't work anymore, then it's either we try to figure out a new way to make it work, or it just doesn't happen anymore. And I think that we seem to be at that level. Because I think that we're gonna continue to have the same exact problem if we keep running it as it is right now. And again, with all due respect for everyone that's worked on it for so many years and has put in so much time, but things change, times change, and I think that we either have to adjust with the change of what the market for this does, and whether, we continue doing this or really make a change. It has to be a bigger change. I don't think it can be just let's do a little, it has to be an overall big change to how it's done if we're gonna do it.
Well, and the interesting piece of that is amid whatever change one makes, I think one simply has to accept the fact that it is a very weather dependent enterprise. And if you get bad weather, you'll take a bath. Financially.
And for context,
Wow.
this whole outdoor music festival, they're struggling across the world. You can Google it and find a lot of articles in England, in the
Yeah.
US, and
Oh, it makes
Australia.
Did we have a social media manager on this? There was something that we paid a media company, didn't we, or?
Yeah, yes.
Because I didn't see, besides I didn't see as much traction as I would have liked to, I guess.
Well, it's just credit where you're going to see it, and I know you can speak to that, you'll ask Bruce and Doug, and they can tell you.
Okay.
But, the reality here is there's also a threshold of, you talk about the Bridgeport thing, that is a massive commercial enterprise.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that's food buyers are closing it this weekend.
Yeah, and their VIP tickets are, the highest end is like $3,000 a ticket. Oh,
General admission right now, if you try to buy it on like StubHub, is like $350. I saw the other day.
yeah, no, that's a weekend ticket, it's a
That's just a day ticket.
two-day enterprise. But again, that
Is there
isn't,
better weather during this time of year as well? Like, is it something that we should keep on that day?
Well, then, no, you're kind of getting into hurricane season.
Yeah.
and we're limited when we can do it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So-
Right.
I'm just curious.
Climate change. I mean,
Well, we're interested in when we get limited, when we can do it based on everything else that goes on in the field.
Yeah.
And also recognizing that if there is damage on the field, we need to repair it in time for the sports season.
Right.
So-
Yeah. Well, one way to think about it is, I mean, we're talking about music festivals that attract a lot of people. Another way to think about it might be to turn more towards the community and think about like how does this festival serve people within the village of Pleasantville, perhaps in the, immediate surrounding community? Like, what are the elements that are really valuable to
Yeah.
them? And is there a way to kind of scale it back a little bit, whether it's a question of stages or whatever it is, that would be more reflective of not having some as fabulous a music festival in the sense of comparing it with, these much bigger entities, but something that, it is a valuable event.
Well, that's the other way to
analogous
go, right?
Pleasantville
Is to
Day
go
or
sing along, cover
Yeah.
band, have a part of the day
Exactly.
be a kids,
Correct.
or, like all that. That could be a reasonable way to.
Yeah, I mean,
go,
they had a Taylor Swift like cover band at the Valhalla Dam. It was packed, packed, as if it was like Fourth of July.
Yeah.
On
No,
the
I think-
trains,
yeah.
ring and you
I think
guys
doing
were
something
pouring
like
out of it.
That was a cover band. I mean, literally,
Like
like it was just
PTSD.
something.
I
you know.
No, I couldn't even, I thought I was going into the city. Well, my
Yeah.
kids got on the train to do it. As I said, I'm not driving over there, and it's just pouring out of everyone in Pleasantville into the train stations. It was a lot. So that is true. That's-
And I like Better Than Ezra. They have, a couple of songs, and I know a lot of music, but most people didn't even know what Better Ezra
It
was
was
at all.
not, but yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I don't, and I'm sure we paid a pretty penny for it, but there was, one song, maybe two songs that people knew, so. The Wailers the Wailers were like a cover band, if you really think about it, because it's not like any of the original Wailers were there, it was like, the closest was like a Sun.
Well, the Whalers or last year, the Allman Betts band, like those
So,
could be like
so
the
it's like,
top
because
bands.
people know those songs. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of cover bands, or we have original bands in the area that have big followings. That they fill up a lot of the local bars when they have shows. And these are some serious bands that aren't getting You know, at most, they're getting paid like 2,000 or something like that for a show, but, you know, it's something looking at it like.
Can we get a graph
those are all good
of
points.
how much we've paid as the village, like, since it started?
I don't know, it might be hard to come back 18 years, but we certainly can.
We have that.
Or just 10
the-
years.
What's called recent.
Yeah.
Past.
Okay,
All right, and then we'll have Bruce and Doug come and we'll also bring the floor plate plan of how it's all been agreed so far and just have a work session on it. I mean, kick it around.
And, you know, the bottom line is if we are going to do it, we should make that decision soon.
Yeah.
Because they'll need a runway to start booking bands and.
Soon meaning, can you?
I would say before the end of the year.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
total sense.
Certainly before, I would say. we
Oh,
could-
yeah,
Even
and
earlier.
before that, actually,
Please,
because
yeah.
we sell tickets.
By November, so.
Yeah.
So
I think we should make this decision by November 1.
Yeah,
by the end,
Agreed.
by our
Yeah.
second meeting in October, so
Yeah.
maybe,
And that we keep talking, it'll be like, we have to decide now, today.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Enough said on that, more later, and we will segue. No one is here in the room, and the attendee side, we have a few attendees, so we will begin our regular meeting. Departing our work session, good evening all to the village board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, September 23. Apologies to anyone who tried to check out the agenda on Novus Agenda. They are having technical problems, and when you pull that up, it isn't working properly. So we're working off a PDF here in paper copies, and anyone who's at home who's trying to get to that agenda or the backup attached to it is likely not going to be successful. Novus says they're working on it, but they have not solved it yet. So our next regular meeting is on Monday, October 14th.
It's actually Wednesday, the 16th, because of.
It's a holiday.
Yes. If I looked at my calendar, I would see that, right, because of the holiday. Okay, so our next regular meeting is a little longer from now than usual. Wednesday, October 16. Are we able to be here or we have to see?
We're here.
nice.
Okay. And as always the case, you can pick up the Zoom links to this meeting and other boards and committees at pleasantville-ny.gov. And within a fairly short period of time, you can pick up the Zoom video of our work session and our regular session at pctv76.org, where you can also find archived videos for past meetings of this board and others. All right, I had a few announcements to make. The first is maybe segue to Paul to talk about yesterday's block party.
So Saturday's block party was great. It was, we had great weather, talking about weather affecting our event, so we had really good weather. We had a lot more cars this year on Washington Avenue. For all of everyone, I think had a really good time, and we changed the event a little bit, that we started earlier on Wheeler this year, and I think was well attended and, finished as scheduled by 6 p.m. So it was overall a good event. I'm really happy with the turnout, and from everyone that I talked to, a lot of the kids were having a good time. A lot of parents, it was great gathering with friends and families, so it was really good. I'm really happy with the turnout.
And thank you for your work, and thanks to the Chamber of Commerce for all the work they did. And thanks as always for quite a bit of the behind the scenes and front of the scenes work done by the folks from the Parks Department, DPW, and our Pleasantville.
Melissa, definitely
Police
thank you so
Department.
much for helping us
Yes.
get all the vendors vetted.
Okay, those of you who follow our meetings know that we approved the plan to go ahead and replace the Pleasantville pool, the result of many long hours of discussion over a long period of time. Eric, quick update. They're rocking and rolling up
We're
there.
rocking and rolling. The contractor has mobilized and started the demo and excavation. Obviously, the goal is to get the pool workable by the start of the season, next Memorial Day. So if Mother Nature cooperates, we are tracking to that goal. But yeah, it's a great scene up there. A lot of change, and the one worry we had was, hey, once we award this bid and approve it, can they mobilize quick enough? And they really have. So knock on wood, full steam ahead.
Right?
Great.
All right, and then I'll send it right back to you again for exciting, long belated, but exciting news of what's going on with the second part of our Manville Road
Yes.
pedestrian project and the segue into the civic space.
Sure. So, the retaining wall around the monuments is done as of today. The walls were poured and then you have to wait until the walls actually they cure long enough so they reach their full strength. So that delayed them to do all of the backfills. So that's the material put behind the wall until today. So they got that completed. Now, PCI, the prime contractor is going to come in, finish up the curb around the monument, build the sidewalk along Memorial Plaza. So that way we can get the right-hand turn lane at the Memorial Plaza Manville Road intersection. That will likely be done by the end of this week. So as of close of business Friday, we're going to officially close this. And from there, our civic space contractor is planning to mobilize on Monday and we'll start work. He was on site today. He'll likely start excavation around the civic space area. So there'll be a lot going on. We will basically just take all of the parking from the MTA overpass north for the duration of the project. So the contractor can mobilize and have all that space. Obviously, at the conclusion of the project, we will get back the spaces within the plaza and that north area.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can we plan some kind of event for the opening of the civic space?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be really nice, I think.
Yep, we are, again, Mother Nature cooperates. We're on track to get it done before the end of the year. The one thing that may be delayed is the paving. The plants, if it's cold, will shut down mid-November.
Okay,
But we can play that by ear. But at the end of the day, yes, we can absolutely.
Okay. yeah, let me know
great.
what the next steps should be.
I had a question that came to me. I was asked if there were gonna be any picnic tables in the civic space. I think the answer was no, but I wasn't sure what the thinking was.
So there's gonna be tables, we're having kind of a seating area underneath trees across from the diner.
Okay.
So
In
those
the
are
area
table
that
and
in the
chairs.
planning was called the Bosque.
The boss.
Yeah, I remember the boss.
We're
Can we
thinking
still
of
call it the boss?
the boss.
Maybe that feels a little oblique for some.
Yeah, but those are the aspects of the project that aren't written in stone.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay.
We can
Yeah.
decide on that once we see it and feel it.
So,
Yeah.
it's just an unimaginable series of challenges that have come forth over this whole venture. But in the end, quite a remarkable job on that curved retaining wall. Backfilled now and PCI was out there today and hopefully we'll be there every day. So.
Yeah.
Also made some with Anthony Carr's planning, made some modifications within the plaza, cut back the islands a little bit to make an easier turn when you're pulling out of the train station side to the other side, and a couple of sidewalk pieces being added. So good stuff going on all the way. If you have not yet, you should drive and then walk, or walk first and then drive on Cooley Street, which is now for the first time in perhaps a century, a full two-way street. Pushed through all the way, new lighting, new paving, new sidewalks on both sides. Really, again, a project that took a while to finalize, but is now open and I think is really a big step forward, creating a new way to get between Manville and Bedford, relieving some of the pressure on Memorial Plaza. So, and then, as I have said quite a few times in the past, the way to get to experiencing the pedestrian experience on Cooley is to walk on the new walkway adjacent to 70 Memorial from Memorial Plaza down to Cooley Street, because it's a beautifully planted walkway that has a permanent public easement and brings you now to a proper pedestrian condition on Cooley Street. So good stuff going on there. in the midst of yesterday's or Saturday's activity, with all this activity downtown with the block party, Con Ed decided that they would reappear at the gas main project on Bedford Road between Sutton and Academy and brought traffic down to one lane and are addressing the gas main laterals work that has to be done. And maybe a Saturday is better than a weekday with school open, but it seemed like a lot. Maybe not the best Saturday, but stuff happens. I encountered that as I was headed to the Hayes Hill Hose Company for the wet down ceremony that the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department has scheduled, which is essentially a dedication of their two new trucks, 2023 Pierce trucks, Engine 91 and Rescue 47, two really beautiful new trucks that had been very thoughtfully planned and are now in Pleasantville and are available for use. So it was a really nice event, the dedication of the trucks. Their blessing by Luke White, the chaplain of the fire department, but a gathering of lots of members of many generations in the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department, as well as visits by colleagues from other departments and from EMS, and a really nice event. Some pictures of that are up on the fire department Facebook page, and I encourage you to take a look. And those two new trucks will be based down at headquarters, and you might peer in and take a look. I know the fire department folks are proud of them, and speaking from my own now getting to be quite a while ago life of a parent of a small child, visiting fire trucks is an exciting venture, and maybe a good way to encourage little kids to think about maybe becoming a volunteer fire department in the village of Pleasantville when they are old enough to do it. Couple of other points to be made. The Ragamuffin Parade is scheduled for Sunday, October 27. Just as we did last year, it's on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. So Sunday, October 27, it's going to gather up at BRS as always at around 12:30 p.m. and then march down to Memorial Plaza for some fun and festivities down to Memorial Plaza. So get those costumes ready, adults, children, and pets. Sunday, October 27, the Ragamuffin Parade. I always feel as though that's a day when Pleasantville's population happily doubles. So Veterans Day follows not too far behind the 11th day of the 11th month. So this year, Veterans Day is on Monday, November 11, and we will, as we always do, have a ceremony at the gazebo at 11 a.m. on Monday, November 11, along with the Fancher Nickel American Legion Post. And then the lighting ceremony for the tree and dreidel Saturday, December 7. I got that right, Paul?
Yeah, and it's at 6 p.m.
So that was a conversation with various people in the Chamber of Commerce about trying to connect this better to activities downtown, and also to make it possible for parents who have too much to do to get the kids through homework, dinner, and bed on a weekend.
Correct.
Lots of interesting stuff going on at the library, and I encourage folks to not only use the library, but be aware that the library is moving forward with plans for phase 1 of a pretty substantial modernization of the library building. Those plans are available on the library website, but the library is also proceeding, trying to get some additional grant money. So some really interesting things are going to be happening at the library in the coming months and years. So exciting stuff going on there. As mentioned the last time, we're probably officially in hurricane season. Is that true, Eric? So I do encourage folks, as does the county, to go to www.ready.gov for best practices for personal and family emergency preparedness. That kind of thing that most of us don't think about much, and yet during Superstorm Sandy, when lots of us, myself included, were out of power for something like 2 weeks, it put a bunch of assumptions in a different place in my mind. And I think honestly, that has been fruitful going forward. I am confident that the efforts I have made to avoid the troubles we had then in my own life our insurance against them ever happening again. And so if that actually pays off, it was worth it. So, anybody else have a report to make? So, last thing I wanted to say was, we're going to be convening some work sessions, talking with some folks who are very much interested in the whole issue of the Grant Street and Sawmill River Parkway intersection, and as well, there has been quite a bit of interest in whether there's some improvements that can be made on Academy Street and Manville Road, and some progress has been made along there with improving signs and the like. But if the Grant Street Sawmill intersection is of special concern to you, I think it's of concern to everyone, but there are strong feelings about the idea of closing it, and both pro and con. At the moment, I think there isn't any active plan to close it. There's certainly lots of people looking at whether the conditions there can be made safer. And we've talked in the past about what DOT will do, but keep your eye out, and we'll stay in touch about opportunities for folks possibly to come to sort of a town hall or work session or a neighborhood gathering about what everybody thinks about that, which is something you'll hear about if you sign up for Village News at pleasantville-ny.gov. Left column, subscribe to news. You can choose the things you want to get, but it's really the best way for us to reach out to all of you, and it's the best way for you not to miss something you wish you would have been able to know about. So Alyssa has been working with web hosting people, and in some period of weeks and months, we'll be rolling out a much improved website.
Our timeline is hopefully final by April.
Okay, so we have the right person on the job. Thank you, Alyssa. All right, anything else? All right, with that, we'll go to the resolutions. I will share the screen of the PDF. I cannot share the live
We
screen.
on paper until April?
Yeah. I like the idea of-
So many trees.
The environmental cost.
Yeah.
Will switch over.
I can tell you, it is like the old days, before electronic packets. On Friday night, the police would deliver to each of the board members a packet of all this stuff like this, and one board member, who shall not be named, although he probably wouldn't mind, had a son who occasionally got himself into some fisticuffs, and when his father retired, he said, "Thank God, every Friday night I thought, are they bringing the packet or are they coming for me?" Right, here we go, here. All right, I did it. Resolution number 327, Paul.
Result that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the payment of $5,000 from 2023 Pleasantville Community Television audit expense.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this represents an additional cost that we had not anticipated, but which needs to be paid. Correct. All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Nicole, 328.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated September 23rd, 2024 for fiscal year ending 2025, and check numbers 112252 to 112364. From the general fund, $315,653.47. From the special purpose fund, $367.10. From the water fund, $214,333.42. From the capital fund, $18,536.69. From the refuse fund, $23,396.51, for a total of $572,288.19.
Is there a second? So this check register makes clear, fortunately it wasn't too much, but it includes a payment to our IT consultant to work on CrowdStrike issues that bad day when all across the country and I guess the world, everybody was scrambling to come back from that. Yes. Any other comments or questions about the check register? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Now I gotta scamper through the check register here in this PDF.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending 2024, listed below: $12,724.67. Revenue from federal aid, other 840.4089, expense transfer to capital A 9950.901 Manville Road Corridor projects.
Is there a second? Second. Taking a piece of the ARPA money.
Yes, so we had allocated it to the police communication project, some of it left over, so now we're.
Okay, no next questions? All in favor? Aye, motion approved. Amy, 3:30.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 9th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? So anyone who paid attention to that meeting knows that the Daughters of the American Revolution came as part of a kickoff to Constitution Week, which commemorates the signing of the Constitution and is September 17 to today, September 23. Today being the last day of a national celebration of Constitution Week, and a really an interesting occasion to think a little bit more about the Constitution, and that's part of what they're about. So I thank them for that. Comments, questions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Okay, 331, Paul.
Though the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the following new hires: Russell Blackwell Jr., Recreation Assistant 0269, new budget code A7330.101, Panther Club, for an hourly rate of $22, and Linda Freilich, Recreation Assistant 0269, A7330.101, Panther Club, at $22 hourly rate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Welcome to new folks from Panther Club. Those of you who may have heard in work session, we talked to Mike Newman. They're continuing to seek employees for Panther Club. So if you're interested in working with kids and have some opportunity to work in the afternoon on weekdays, please reach out to our rec department. There are jobs available. All in favor? Aye, motion approved. 332.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes with an S the mayor to sign a side letter with the Civil Service Employee Association, Inc., CSEA, for the purposes of amending the pay scale for recreation titles.
Is there a second? Pretty straightforward, Eric.
Yep, we are moving a rec title up a pay scale and inserting a rec title in its place for the director of control.
Comments, questions? All in favor? Aye, motion approved.
Well, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign a proposal from THN Venegas Consulting Engineers in the amount of $15,750 for engineering services related to the expansion tank replacement of the courtroom and meeting room AC and emergency generator replacement.
Is there a second? Second. The AC around here is a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, this one is the old Carrier compressor that's outside. The air handler is in the roof. It's over 20 years old, so it's on its last legs.
Okay. And then the generator is in the basement, the
Correct.
backup generator for the police department and
Yes.
key parts of the rest of the building.
Yeah, it's functioning well. It's getting to the end of its suggested life, and that is something we want to be proactive about, not reactive.
We have yet a sense, and perhaps it will come out of this, but we have a sense for the cost of that generator replacement.
It is likely about $100,000. The wild card is just how to get it.
I was gonna say, how do you get the old one out when you win it?
That will be the driver on cost.
It's in an extremely awkward location, but they got it in, so must be that you can get it out. All right, all in favor? Aye, motion approved. 334.
Do you want me to read the title as well? Consider adopting.
No, you can just start the whereas.
Whereas New York State
I
Public
think you can, at
Officers
some point,
Three in village.
say as further stated in the record.
Okay, requires that certain municipal officers be resident of the village municipality and where they serve. And whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville have determined that in order to recruit and retain the best candidates for certain appointed municipal officers, that it is necessary for the New York State Legislature to adopt a special law thereby authorizing certain municipal officers to reside outside of the Village of Pleasantville and outside of the County of Westchester. And it goes further down. I'm gonna read, can continue reading this?
Yeah, so maybe now therefore be resolved.
And there,
I think we ought to call out the categories. So why don't you lead second to last paragraph?
second one, okay. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville, Westchester County, New York, do hereby respectfully submit a home rule request pursuant to the New York State Municipal Home Rule law that the New York State Senate and Assembly introduce a special law amending public officers law 3 and Village Law 3-300 to provide that the offices of the village administrator, village clerk, deputy village clerk, village treasurer, deputy village treasurer, village assessor, building inspector, assistant building inspector, and court clerk of the Village of Pleasantville, Westchester County need not be residents of the Village of Pleasantville or the county of Westchester, but shall be required to be residents of Putnam County, Rockland County, Dutchess County, Orange County, or Ulster County. Be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to forward the appropriate number of certified copies of this resolution and suggested special law language annexed hereto to the offices of the state senator Andrew Stewart Cousins and the state assembly member Mary Jane Simpson.
Is there a second? So do you think there's any unclarity in that sentence that said need not be residents of the Village of Pleasantville, County of Westchester, but shall be required to be residents of Putnam, Rockland, Dutchess?
We can update the
I
language.
mean, shouldn't it say, but alternatively could be or something?
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, you take that one little piece of a sentence and it seems like,
Yeah,
Or you could just say must be residents of
yeah. and then we'll
Westchester,
list the-
Dutchess.
Yeah.
Putnam,
Yeah, that's fine.
blah, blah, blah.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, so mover and seconder accept that modification of language.
Yes.
All, and Eric, I mean, the point of this is not an immediate issue, but simply good planning ahead. We're in an environment where lots of folks are coming from lots of nearby counties. We certainly have that for employees in other non-appointed roles.
That's correct.
Gives us flexibility down the road.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 335. Paul,
Result that the village board of trustees hereby authorize the village administrator to execute all necessary documents for the assignment of a license agreement at 27 Temple Place for retaining wall and landscaping that encroaches on village property to Whitney King.
is there a second?
Second.
So this is a retaining wall that has been reviewed by the building inspector.
Yep, we currently have a license agreement over it, and the homeowners are selling their house, so they want to transfer the license agreement to the new homeowner.
Makes sense? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 336 now. Is this printout the updated one?
There's both of them.
What, for what?
The parking for the,
No, it's the old language, so we're gonna have to update, yeah.
all right, so, it's yours. We're about to change the language. Well, why don't you read it the way it is and
Okay,
then, Alyssa can read the revised language.
okay. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby institutes no parking every Saturday from 5 AM to 3 PM in the Memorial Plaza roadway from the gazebo in a southerly direction covering select spaces reflected in the maps attached hereto. And be it further resolved that overnight parking is restricted on Fridays within Memorial Plaza starting on Friday, September 27, 2024. Through the duration of the Civic Space Project, and that the police department is hereby authorized to post no parking signs and to tow all vehicles in violation of this parking restriction.
Is there a second?
Okay.
So in the course of the conversation today with Eric, the police chief, with Peter Brogman and Steve Bates, number of issues arose about this that I think make it unreasonable for us to do exactly what was proposed. So Alyssa, do you want to read the proposed new language?
What were the times? I didn't put it in there yet.
But essentially
So
no
we
parking.
would say, no parking, from the gazebo in the northerly direction from 5 to 6 AM on Saturdays. And those in violation would be subject to ticketing.
Okay.
Not,
So-
In northerly direction,
Yeah,
because the
so-
original says southerly.
well, so the southerly direction, we are actually restricting parking as is, that is not changing.
Oh,
You
okay,
can't park because that's the footprint of.
Right, the footprint of the market.
Of the market.
And we actually tow cars because they're in the way of the market itself.
I see.
In
So
the
we're
northerly
adding-
Right.
direction, overnight parking is not restricted, and folks would, maybe 5 to 6 cars do park there. That's not a huge impact because we have the rest of the lot now with the Civic Space project taking off all of the parking essentially from the overpass north. The farmer's market would like to try to keep those spaces open.
I see. Okay.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
After the civic space is done, will the farmers market use that area, like to have their veggies?
So that, I believe they're still evaluating that, but that is a very likely scenario.
We changed the design extensively in
I would
order to
hope.
accommodate the farmer's market.
That would make so much
But-
sense.
But now they're.
If they don't use it, then we can change it back.
There,
So the,
It actually make
but,
grass.
so the core issue with this, was, we do end up with some folks who just park in Memorial Plaza for the whole weekend. And there isn't anything that, keeps them from doing that. As Eric already indicated, it's kind of more important right now for those 5, 6, whatever number of cars it turns out to be, not to be parked there at that moment. Clearly, not reasonable, I think, to tow them and say, we're gonna tow you out of there and then let other people park there.
Right.
But what is reasonable, I think, is to say no parking between 5 and 6 AM, which basically says no overnight parking. And I think in the first couple of weeks, we would certainly do that with a warning and not a ticket. But no towing, simply a summons, and then hopefully in a couple of months, when this project is, God willing, coming to a close, we go back to the conditions we already had. But we have had some trouble over the years with folks finding Pleasantville to be a good place to park and going to the city for 2 days or whatever, and just leave their car there. And so you end up with a certain number of cars that are just blocking up parking spaces and not moving for the entire weekend at times when it would be great to have them available for all kinds of uses. So we'll see how it all plays out when the civic space is done and the Manville Road project's up and running, but this is an interim solution.
Sorry, this is the Science Center, but on Cooley Street, is there extra parking?
There is now
Just be considered.
parallel parking along the street that's been striped.
Okay,
And the so-called lane lot, the lot we own behind the post office, is also gonna be a good place for people to park. Did you ask yet what the striping story is for that section?
Yeah, they'll be working on it, DPW.
there's
Like this
overnight
week,
parking
do you
in
think,
that
or-
area?
Oh, there is, yeah, it's a permitted lot, so on Saturdays, it's open to the public.
Yeah, so we also, I will say, it'll be a conversation with the post office because the post office has used that rather freely in recent years, in part during the construction and during the pandemic and all of that. It was a little bit of a victim's crime. In the previous setup over at Cooley Street, the post office had a specific set of permit parking locations that were on the Key Food side of the street, essentially bumper into the side of Key Food. Those spaces are now parallel spaces, and so we'll have to identify a different spot for them, but
Just to know that there's additions there that we've
Yeah.
made for parking.
there are additions, yes. And honestly, somebody asked me the other day, I think we're losing some parking spaces at the across from the diner as part of this project that is undertaken right now. Those were more than counteracted by the spaces we added at the other end with the new diagonal parking on both sides. The net of all of this, including what goes on Cooley Street, is probably a minor net loss of street parking. But again, when you include the spaces that are available as permit spaces in the garage. All right, mover and seconder accept the modified language.
Yeah, I'll read it. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby restricts parking within Memorial Plaza from the gazebo in a northerly direction on Saturdays between 5 and 6 AM, 5 AM and 6 AM. That those in violation be subject to ticketing by the Pleasantville Police Department.
Okay, acceptable to mover and seconder. All in favor? Aye, motion approved. And then Eric, I think that should be a warning in the first few,
Yes.
first we haven't got signs up to this effect yet anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville, New York, the village desires to ensure that the village complies with applicable provisions of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. And the regulations promulgated thereto applicable to tax exempt bond and notes issued.
Issued, I would guess.
Note issues, no, I think it's correct. It's,
Oh, really?
yeah, note issues is the thing, right?
Yeah.
That are issued by the village from time to time. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville, New York as follows.
Make an issue out of it.
Post issuance compliance policies and procedures attached hereto is Exhibit A. The post issuance compliance procedures and policies and procedures are hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, the village treasurer is hereby authorized to take such actions after appropriate consultation with the village's bond council as he or she deems necessary, appropriate, or desirable to effect the implementation of the post-issuance compliance policies and procedures. The village board hereby further authorizes the village treasurer to delegate to such other village officials, staff, or employees as the village treasurer shall determine as necessary or appropriate the responsibility take certain specific actions called for by the post-issuance compliance policies and procedures. Section 3, the resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
That is followed by 6 pages of thrilling verbiage.
Yeah, no, we
We
have been following this. We haven't officially adopted it by resolution, so it's best known.
All right, comments, questions? All in favor?
I mean, how is it different from what we were doing before?
No, it's exactly what we do, and all that verbiage is captured in our ban and bond issuance paperwork. It's just, we should get it adopted formally by the paper.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved, and then 338.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Pleasantville, the village desires to establish policies and procedures to ensure that the village complies with applicable Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, continuing disclosure rules and certain continuing disclosure agreements or undertaking entered into by the village relating to bonds and notes issued by the village from time to time. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Trustees of the village as follows. Section 1, the continuing disclosure policies and procedures attached hereto as Exhibit A. The continuing disclosure policies and procedures are hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, the village treasurer is hereby authorized to take such actions after appropriate consultation with the village's bond council as he or she deems necessary, appropriate, or desirable to implement the continuing disclosure policies and procedures, and is further authorized to delegate to such other village officials, staff, or employees as the village treasurer shall determine as necessary or appropriate. The responsibility to take certain specific actions called for by the continuing disclosure policies and procedures. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Is there a second?
Same situation, this is something we've always done, but are formally having been talking about.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 339. Paul.
Result the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the following new hires: Jack Turner, Recreation Assistant 0269, Budget Code 87324.101, Youth Programs, and A7313.101, Special Events, an hourly rate of $15.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
motion approved. 340.
Whereas sealed bids were advertised in the official village newspaper and received on September 18th, 2024 for the 2024-2026 Pleasantville Village Estate Sidewalks for guide rail improvements. And whereas bids were received as per the following. Woodland Manor LLC, 319,800,
Thousand.
sorry, thank you.
I wish it were 390.
Green Wall, $842.50. Scape Tech Landscape Technology Inc., $349,962.50. Palladino Concrete Creations for $395,995. Peter J. Landy Inc., $413,487.50. Javelin Co. Construction, $449,875. Southern Industries Corp., $509,633.76. Senco Metals LLC, $647,650. Morano Brothers Corp., $815,555. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees awards bids for 2024 to 06, to Woodland Manor LLC and authorizes the village administrator to execute all necessary agreements.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is finally the execution of a long discussed project to build a sidewalk essentially from the village line across in front of the Springfield Estates area and over to Pierce Drive.
That is correct. In state right of way, which is made it a,
Complicated venture.
yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
It's amazing that the bid for something can go from 320 to $815,000.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
341, David.
Resolve the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the retirement of Virginia Collins, acting justice effective October 15th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
So I certainly won't vote against this, but I wish I could. Virginia Collins has served so ably and impressively in this role as the acting associate village justice, first with John Kerry and now with John Bukel. She's a former prosecutor in her a very long past life, was almost the ideal person to take on this role. Took it on with great skill and invested a lot of thinking and training to make sure she was doing it right. Brought us forward in lots of different ways. It was a fortunate day for the village of Pleasantville when Gigi took over that role, and a fortunate day for a number of our neighboring communities, which are always looking for somebody to fill in when somebody's away. And she served in that role as well. She promised me she's not moving away because then we'd really have to vote against it. But she's arrived at the point where she's got lots of other things going on in her life and deserves to take a breather. So thank you, Gigi Collins, for all you have done. We'll have more to say about that at some point, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. See, I didn't vote against it. 342, Lynn.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year end 2025 as listed below. Budget transfers general fund amount $16,488. A1990.400 contingency. A1410.488 administration software. $9,950. A1990.400 contingency. A1440.400 engineering. $2,429. A1990.400 contingency. A1681.406 technology supplies. $5,000. A1990.400 contingency. A898.400 PCTV contractual. Coming to $33,867. Appropriate fund balance, general fund, amount $30,000. A9901.905 transfer to capital sidewalks and curbing fiscal year end 2025. H5197.201254990. Increase revenue and expense capital fund amount $30,000. H050.5031 interfund transfer from general sidewalks and curbing fiscal year end 2025. H5197.201254990. $30,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sounds so, I'm not certain you're willing to say.
Well, it's like a
Second.
careful ballet, who's
Yeah.
gonna pick it up?
And just FYI, that $30,000 at curb and sidewalk is the, where we're paying out the Pleasantville Village Estate sidewalk project. So, the bids came in a little bit, the low bidder came in a little bit higher, what we budgeted, so.
And some, at this point, rather modest piece of it came from escrow funds from the previous developer.
That's right, correct.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Paul, 343, bring us home.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the request from Colin Higgins, 107 Sorrels Lane, to hold a block party and thereby close Sorrels Lane to Congress Street and Coffin Street on Saturday, September 28, 2024, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second,
Down the other end of the neighborhood, okay?
that's my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, the greatest.
All in favor?
Alright,
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Motion approved. Stop sharing. Is there any comment of any sort from anybody in the room or anyone watching on Zoom?
Can I just make a bid
You can.
to, or just to say that we have a wonderful crossing guard at the Grant Street crossing at Sawmill, who I would like to suggest that all crossing guards use whistles
Yes?
and flags. Because I think that they've greatly improved that area
Great,
for the crossing, yeah, for
Uh-huh.
the crossing area.
great.
Yeah, the whistle seems to be very useful and helpful.
Uh-huh,
Flare gun?
I mean, all the crossing guards do an amazing job.
yes.
This morning, I saw Ron almost get hit by someone actually, so they put their lives on the line, literally, like, had to stop the car, so I would hope that we can give them a little more support.
Yeah.
In this, wonderful new school season as well.
Great.
The new crossing guard on Manville at Great Oak is great too.
Yes.
Glad to
All
hear.
right, so good stuff. Whistles are a good idea. Great.
We'll pass it along to the chief.
All right. There being no further comment from anybody in the room or on Zoom, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. As reported, our next regular meeting is Wednesday, October 16, because of the holiday on the 14th, 7 p.m. work session, 8 p.m. regular session, right here at 80 Wheeler Avenue. Thank you all and good night.